But it's so weird because then you're like, ew.
This took a weird turn. Let's start the podcast.
Tell me when you're starting, or else.
I'm starting now.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? For real?
Starting now. We're live.
Okay.
I haven't figured out how to get my intro to play in both places at the same time. It's playing in Pro Tools. We're hearing it there. Didn't go to the internet. That's fine. So, Waxless Radio live for the first time, truly live. What's up?
Wow.
We got Mary in the studio.
Here I am.
If you go to twitch.tv/WaxlessFPV, you can see what we look like right now.
Can I watch myself?
You can watch
live?
yourself on your phone. That's the cool thing about Twitch is that like I can send somebody a
Is it in the app?
URL and it just shows up as a look, that's you right there. It's pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah. So what's up, Waxless?
Oh, I get
We're
it.
integrating.
Back there.
We're integrating. We're trying to be. I mean, do I have to be official now? I think I kind of do. I got like reasons to be official. We got drones. We got things God's shown us. We got to bring to the people. So you and I have been friends for how long?
Dude,
So
since
long.
2001 or
Whoa, 2. Because I graduated
No.
in 02 and I showed up in Greenville in 02.
Didn't you get there my sophomore year? Which was 01.
Yes.
'Cause
No.
I started
It was
2000.
your junior year. Yeah, you were a junior when I was a freshman.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, I believe you. So 20 years anyway.
Pretty sure
either
I
way.
graduated in 02.
20
Although I could be
years.
wrong. I've been wrong
It's
before
been
about
20 years.
That's
20.
ridiculous. 20 years
Never thought
this year.
when I met that weird kid who was like, I'm 16 and I'm in college.
My cousin's in jars of
Yeah. And then I was like, oh, okay, let's be friends.
It would be 20 years before I realized that I had a burning need for affirmation, and anything that would serve that was my vehicle. Homeschoolers unite.
Homeschoolers
this
unite.
Is real because homeschoolers have a built-in, and it's not malicious. It's not a bad thing, but we have this ingrained
Need for validation.
Because think about it. What did
Because
you
we
do?
never had it.
Mom, did I do good enough? Can I be done yet? Did I do all my work?
Did
Am
I get
done?
an A? Yeah. Okay. Did
Yeah.
I though?
I did. I was like, can I go outside? Can I be done? I got
Yeah.
these like camera angle changes that I got to hit, but I think it's really distracting. Oh, and when I do this one,
You don't
when I
split
hit
screen?
this one, it plays the intro music. That's not good. When I hit that one camera scene, it's like playing the intro music along
Oh,
with it. We're still
no.
learning how to use OBS and all that stuff. So, no, we're good. I
I'm always the
deleted
guinea
that.
pig. I love it.
Well, that's because you're family, you know?
I know.
What were we saying before about, we were saying how you were always around like the studio and stuff, but you were just,
Oh, yeah.
you were the only girl that I knew that was really cool to have around, if that
I'm
makes sense.
so cool.
So we decided to get together and talk
Because
about.
I was the only girl who was really interested in it. Like,
Well, that
I
too.
feel like most of the other girls were just like,
Nobody wanted to do studio stuff.
It's. I don't even want to do studio stuff anymore.
I'm getting to the
It's
point
so-
where it's a necessary
Actually,
evil.
I still like mixing.
Mixing's cool. Mixing's
Recording.
cool. I'll give you that.
I always liked it because I always wanted to write songs and record them, and then I learned how to do it, and that's what I wanted to do.
Okay, so the end was the means for the learning for you.
For me,
'cause
yeah.
you wanted to bring your songs to
Yes,
life.
and I thought on the way, I'm like, oh, maybe I could love engineering. Maybe I'll like, because I didn't know, and I'm like, maybe I'll make this a career. And then I'm like, nah, I don't want to do this.
If I love the computers, they'll love me back.
Maybe, but they just never did.
They never did. Chasing the love of circuitry and look, I'm still doing that with drones.
You're
and
still
trying
chasing the love of circuitry.
trying to get electronics
You're
to love
printing
me.
your own.
Yeah, I guess that's a little
Whatever it
update
is
for
that you
our
print.
listeners in Germany. I've since put my 3D printer to a productive use. It's not just something that sits there full of regret anymore. You have no idea how long it took to get that thing working properly, man.
Aw.
Just figuring out how to make a little set of gears and motors and make something properly without turning it into a stringy mess. It's a whole project. It's funny because when I got
Yeah, I'm
the
not
thing,
interested.
shout out Ian McDermott from Greenville.
Yeah.
Dude, do you know what he does now?
No.
He works for Groove Life, the belt company, and he's like deep in it, and he's like, it's the best belt you'll ever buy. I was like, I know
Wait,
that you got to say
belt?
that, but I actually believe you because I don't feel
Belt,
like you're
like for
yeah,
holding up your pants?
that kind of belt. Yeah.
Wow.
So he works for Groove Life.
Neat.
But he told me he was real into 3D printing stuff, but he's like real into board games and stuff. So he's printing like characters and things, and like that's cool. But I'm not that level of nerd. I'm like I want mildly useful stuff and all the little things that you know, like these little. Do you know about? Nope, can't find one. Do you know about Marcel the shell with shoes on?
No.
It's a little shell with a googly eye. Let's see if I can show the camera. since we're live streaming. It's a little shell with a googly eye. It's a little YouTube short. It's like 3 minutes long, and it's just a stop animation shell, and it tells these ridiculous stories. It's very funny. So I found one and printed it for my sister, and it's like her favorite prized possession. So when my friend told me that, or when I got into 3D printing, he's like, yeah, it's a great hobby if you have the time for it. And I'm like, oh, no.
I've got nothing but time.
And boy, was he right. It took so much time to learn how to get it to move. So the point is,
That's interesting.
I figured out how to make it finally work. I found a little piece of rubber stuff that made my drones cooler. At least I thought they did. And it is functional and useful. So I put up a little post on the internet. It's like, hey, does anybody want this? Because I thought it was cool. I'll mail it to you and see if it makes it. Like, I'm just going to put a stamp in the envelope, and it's light enough. Hopefully it'll get to you. And like 15 people around the country now have them, and I get to have conversations with these people now, and I have new friends because of my 3D printer.
Awesome.
So I feel like that's cool.
You know, I think that's another difference between me and you is
I have friends?
Well, yeah.
Fake friends on the internet.
You have fake friends on the internet.
I'm sorry, that was rude. You have
when
friends.
you're doing something that like is really hard and you get frustrated with it, you just keep going until you figure it out. And me, like, I'll hit a ceiling and I'm just like, I don't care anymore. I'm doing something else.
Like,
I give up.
Simply enough of that.
I give up. No, not really, but it's really like you will persevere until you figure it out.
That's really true. Okay,
yeah, with a lot of things.
A good example of, well, sometimes to a fault, though, because if I don't find the answer, I get really like,
Yes.
With this, I wanted to figure out how to live stream the
Case
drone
in point, and it's
goggle
been
feed.
like 4 hours
You know
later.
what, dude? It was only an hour that it took to get this out. I'm talking about other things. Like
Oh,
I'm
the
trying to live
drone,
stream
yeah.
the analog video feed from the drone.
The goggles.
So that people can see what I'm seeing in my goggles live with me. And that's like a whole tons of barriers to figure out to get that.
That's the next level of live streaming.
I figured it out, and I can do it now. I have
So
this
where's
little
your
tiny,
goggles?
It's this little box acts as its own receiver, and then it goes into USB, and it just goes boop, and then
Neat.
we turn on the drone, and this comes to life. It's pretty cool. But who cares? We're not here to talk about that. We are here to talk about safe space spirituality. Right? Is that the catchphrase?
That's what we decided. I
Such
think.
a buzzword catchphrase. I love it. Safe space spirituality.
What does it mean?
The alliteration is palpable. What does it mean? It means that we were kind of thinking the other day, like, what did you say in the notes?
What does it mean?
Where did we go wrong? Why does something that's supposed to bring hope and peace and joy bring none of the above as far as the average American thinks about
Okay, let's
the
rewind.
church?
Yeah,
right?
like 'cause I think it started, or our convo started because we were like, you were asking me, you weren't really asking me. You were telling me you invited some other people to church, and I was just like, yeah, I haven't really exactly been to church in like, maybe since before COVID, and then I'm like, I don't know why, why, and why, and so then we started answering that question, why. Then we haven't figured it out yet.
And why haven't you?
Well, and so it brought up all these other questions, like,
Oh, you said something. No, the first thing you
Why?
said was you don't feel like you fit into a church.
I definitely don't fit into a church.
And is
And,
this
like-
a result of like visiting ones around you where you live, or like what do you feel? Or is it like every church?
I feel like I mean, I can't say it's every church because it's not like I've gone far and wide looking
seen
for the
everyone.
right church, but I have been going to churches since I was born and have seen a lot of different stuff. And what do you even say? Like, and are you supposed to fit in? Like, does that even matter? Like, that's what I've been recently asking myself. Like, I don't need to find some place I fit in and feel comfortable. I just want to. Why do I go to church? Because it's not to fit in somewhere at a club. It's to, what is it for? So I've been like trying to, like break it down. Like, I don't want to just go somewhere to go somewhere. And this is where we came in with the safe zone thing. I don't want to just go to go, you know?
Well, it's checking a box, right?
Check the box.
It's saying
I praised the Lord. I prayed. I got my little message. I'm
did
good
my-
for the week. I did
my
you know.
Christian duty.
Right.
Well, and that comes back a lot to the homeschool kid thing. Like, you got to do your chores before you can go out and play.
Right.
And that was my whole thing. It's still in me, though. Like, if I want to play video games and there's a sink full of dishes,
Well, I mean, it's
I
easier
might
to like
do the dishes
focus on the video game after you've done the dishes because I'll be thinking about what I have to do
Well,
after.
and
But
that comes to a very real thing I've been struggling with lately. The craziest thing I've been dealing with is like, I want to rest. Like, I feel like I need a break, and I can't sit down and rest because I feel like something's not done yet in my head.
yeah,
And what it comes down to is the fact that, like, I quit drinking 6 months ago, and my brain is regrowing, and all the ADHD is now unhindered at full force in my head, where I used to slow it down every night with drinks. And so, like, it's such a crazy realization. The self-awareness I have right now is crazy. I'll get into that later, but I want to hear more about where you're at, because this is not about me. But,
well, it's about both of us.
I mean, I've learned a lot lately, and I'll definitely share what I've learned, but it's part of the mental thing. Like, I just feel really overwhelmed lately in general. Just so much going on, and I can't rest because there's something in the background that feels like it's left undone still. And I was able to identify a couple things of it that I just had signed myself up for to be in charge of, that I just didn't need to be in charge of. And so, like, releasing that, because it was my control issues that said I want to be involved with this. And then I thought about,
because you wanted to control what was happening.
I wanted to control silly little things that really had no point of the outcome of what was served. So,
or we're talking about church.
It was an outreach-based event.
Okay.
It wasn't like just church, but it wasn't necessarily our church thing. But it was like, and then there was somebody else who was, checking up on the event, because it was kind of their event that was handed off to me. And I was like, I haven't done any of the work yet because I don't know how to. It's not something I do all the time. I shouldn't be in charge of this. I just said I wanted to be because there were little things about it I wanted to control, and those little things I want to control are not detrimental to the success or the failure of this event. And I need to just let somebody else take care of it, who's going to serve the real needs of the event well, not what color the lighting is on the day of.
That's huge, though.
And letting go of that, as soon as I did let go of that, I got this piece of saying, you can take a nap now, because you got rid of that one thing that just wasn't right in the back of your mind. So my point is, I was drinking every night all the time before, and I would just, the big things would just be pushed way far in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
The house is actually kind of a good example of that. Like, it was a huge mess before. It was just like stuff
I noticed as soon as I walked in here.
We've cleaned our lives up a lot.
Literally
and figuratively. Adelaide's birthday party helped for that too. But
did you feel like, though, when you were drinking, that when you stopped, like in the next day or something, like when you woke up, was it even worse than it is now? Like, because now that you're like,
let's try to,
all the time, you know what I mean?
Let's talk about the timeline real quick.
Was it like more of a roller coaster then?
Yes, 100%.
Because
So what happened? What had happened was,
what had happened?
I almost died.
Oh, I forgot this part.
Startling realizations. When you start like writing down your utility passwords so your family can still have heat after you die, like, that's a real life-changing like realization.
Yeah.
Like, you go, oh my gosh, like, I need to start thinking about what they can, they got to,
if I'm not here, what do they need to do?
Pay the utility bills so they can stay warm in the winter. Like, it's crazy.
Messed up.
It's crazy to think about. It was really eye-opening.
We are kind of getting to that age, though, that you kind of think about that. It's weird, but that's a whole nother podcast.
So that really woke me up, and then I realized I needed to stop drinking that day, and my brain immediately shut off the desire. I just was like, I don't need this anymore. I had
finally made. Isn't it interesting?
It's been a long time
like,
coming.
It's one of those things you think about all the time, and you just never do, and then one day you're like.
Well, and it's been like that with a lot of things. I think that's how
you're
God
very
meets
much
me
that
and my
kind
personality.
Of yeah. You're that kind of a guy.
It's just like a light switch was turned off and I don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
So like that with cigarettes, I tried to quit on my own so many times, and then demonic deliverance, which we'll talk about in episode. It's actually the second episode we ever released.
That's what's in the second episode.
Yes, it's when I talk about when I got free from stuff.
There's that segue. Okay.
So I still kind of want to tack it on the end of this, just because then people will actually listen to it. But maybe. We'll see.
Maybe.
We'll see. I don't know if people listen to anything. Shout out to Germany, by the way. We got to say thank you to our faithful listeners.
Thank you.
Germany.
We appreciate it.
So where was I? Yes, with drinking, once I realized I was done with it, it was like the light switch was turned off. The next day, I didn't miss it. I didn't miss it ever again. I don't want to drink ever again. Like, it's really cool to think that I'm free from that whole controlling aspect of my life. And it really wasn't even the alcohol. It was the Red Bull. Like, the Red Bull was what I would drive out to get. Mm-hmm. Every night.
See, that's interesting.
Maybe not every night, but like I would stock myself up on Red Bull, and then like if I was out of Red Bull but still had vodka and every other mixer in the house, I was driving out for Red Bull, and I would be mad about it the whole time. I'd just be like, "This is a terrible master. I can't believe I have to go serve this thing right now."
Wow,
it was crazy. So with
Red
that
Bull
relieved,
is so bad for you.
I know. I put enough of it in my body for the past 15 years. I just don't want to think about how bad it is for me. I'm still here.
You're fine.
So maybe I was like preserved. Like maybe it was like formaldehyde in small dosages.
You, yeah.
I don't know. So the journey. Like I want to be done talking about it. It's not why we're here, but it's part of it. So
it's part of it.
The mental journey. I quit. the elation. The first week was like the euphoria. It was like, this is awesome. I have a new life. I have joy. I really had joy the next day, like that I hadn't felt before. I'm like, I'm just so happy, and I don't know why. And it was like
part of it that you were like not.
Alcohol's a depressant, and my body was no longer having it every day. What I learned is that even 2 days later is as early as you will start to feel different, because your body has two modes: recovering from alcohol and not recovering from alcohol. So if you drink one drink every day, your body is still in recovering from alcohol mode the next day or two. So if you just drink every day, even if it's one drink, you're always in recovering from alcohol mode.
Yeah, recovery mode.
And then when you stop drinking, you're in no alcohol mode. And recovery mode. I forgot about that. Mary and I also worked at the Apple Store together for a long time. We saw, this was before the iPhones even too. So it was like the people who only owned Macs, the weird
and then
people.
iPods.
And then now there's less weird people coming in.
I know. It's not as much fun anymore. All these normal people.
So first 2 weeks, elation, novelty, right? But then the novelty wore off after 2 weeks. And I was like,
okay, what then?
So there was a rise, and then there
euphoria.
Was there was this like level out, like everything that I would numb myself to every night with a drink was still there, and now with one less coping mechanism. So it got real hard for a minute, and I was in some real like depressed times. I'm like, oh crap, like life is still very real, and I am very aware of it now. I'm not.
This is so interesting because
I have my own.
I have an opposite sort of experience, but go on.
That's interesting. Like we see stuff so differently. How we self-medicate. I
know.
How we like, and what I've realized is that my ADHD brain is so crazy powerful that I was just slowing myself down all the time, back to normal people speed. I learned that like your dopamine generators, your dopamine generators as an ADHD person. When a normal person is just living their normal day, they're here. Okay. And when they get excited, they get up to here, like something that triggers their dopamine levels, like something that's exciting to them, like something that's like adrenaline giving, or something that's like, whoa, they come up to here. So your normal person is here. They're living there at their normal level.
That's me right here.
Now your ADHD person lives here at the normal
all
level.
The time.
So you're at, when everybody else gets excited, that's where you live. And so it takes more to get you excited past the level of everybody else's standard excitement.
You. It's because you're like,
it takes more to get me excited.
No, because you're automatically already excited about things.
I'm already living at the level where everybody
and I'm like, he's
only
so
gets
excited
once in a
all
while.
the time. It's awesome.
It's not awesome.
It's not awesome to be you.
Dopamine, this and that other thing. So my 2 week
So 2 weeks
crash
you hit
and
the
burn
wall
for a minute, and I was real depressed. I stabilized eventually. Then there was like 3 months later, I started to get really self-aware. And I was like, whoa, I say I love these people. Why do I talk to them like this? And I had a lot of out-of-body experiences that period where I was just like, I'd hear myself saying stuff, but it wasn't really coming from my heart. It was just like a default, like, this is what I say in this situation. And my conscious self was observing what a jerk I was being. And I'm like,
you can't have that perspective if you're constantly medicated. You're just going to be like, I don't know. You don't even remember what you say.
So it also goes to show that the being a jerk is a fleshly habit. Like, it's just your human nature. That's your default mode.
Default mode, yep.
But my awareness has heightened now, so I'm watching myself act in my default mode. Default mode goes with
safe I want to say zone. Okay. Safe space, yeah. Safe space, default mode. Same thing.
So the third-party observation of myself being a jerk was really eye-opening. And then I said to my one of the elders of our church, he's like 76. He's awesome. Yeah. He's like built houses with Jimmy Carter and stuff. Like, he's crazy. And I said, hey, man, like, he's like, how you doing? I'm like, honestly, like, I'm really not happy with myself. I'm really aware of how much of a jerk I can be, and I don't know how to fix it. And he's like, and I was like, I'm just really unhappy with who I've allowed myself to become over these past 15 years. And he's like, well, that's a really good place to be. I was like, oh, man, you're right.
So over the last, 3 to 5 years, say, you hadn't had any inklings of this? Or,
I knew that I needed to stop drinking. That was, the first thing, for a while now. And I just was never, I would, get it down to, 2 drinks a night or whatever and be like, I'm good.
Yeah.
No, I was not. So that the 3 months, the awareness, and then the self-awareness, and then I would say that, I don't want to say I'm good, but I'm definitely a lot more mentally stable from day to day now than I have been the entire journey. And I feel like there's hope That's a new thing. There's hope for the future. There's excitement for the future. Like, who knows what's going to happen next?
Wow.
Like, I'm getting musical possibilities I never knew existed.
Yep.
Like a song we wrote might get a placement on a TV show. Like, there's just all this cool stuff unlocking and opening up. That's stuff I never would have even thought was going to be in the near future. So now I'm really excited for who knows what's next. Like this thing with this guy last night. Like, this guy bet on himself that he would develop a app over 7 days. That was like a mobile simulator for stuff. And like, it was totally like an ego. Like, he set himself up. But I jumped in. I was like, dude, this is awesome. Can I help? Like, and I made the music for it last night. And I got the music in like 10 minutes before he was going to be done with it. And so he's like, I'm implementing it now at the last minute. So there's just cool stuff that like I never would have thought that I'd be making music for a drone simulator that now
it's cool.
People are playing. Like, that's so cool to me.
It is cool.
Here's what it comes down to. God, this is what I want, like, the entire point of my life right now to be. Everybody that I talk to, that I love, or even if I don't love you, if I'm talking to you, and well, you know, if you're talking to me, if you're giving me the time of day, I want to just point to the fact that God loves us, and he's a good dad, and he knows his kids so well. He knows what they enjoy, and he knows what makes their day better. And that's all that he wants to do. He doesn't want to tell you that you're wrong. He doesn't want to tell you that he's disappointed in you. He doesn't want you to feel shame or guilt. If you feel shame in regards to God, you got to reevaluate how you look at God and what he is to you, because he loves you and he does not want to make you feel shameful or guilty about anything. Because why else would he have sacrificed his son if he wanted you to feel shame?
Yep.
What?
And to piggyback off that,
what a great transition to where we are right now.
But
the evangelistic culture in this country is you're
shameful,
wrong.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
Pointing fingers.
You're wrong. And it's
You're
just
wrong.
not. Jesus didn't tell people how wrong they were, unless they were the Pharisees. But like the religious people of the day, like a lot of the people we see today that are the loudest ones are people Jesus would have called the Pharisees. So, you have a lot of great thoughts on this, but what we kind of realized is that my wife was saying, like, what's going on here? Like,
what's going on? I think about
why do so
every
many
day.
people feel like they're good? And I was like, you know what the difference is? I was like, we're aware of the constant need for transformation of our heart. We never made it. We never got there. It's just the like, I don't do those crappy things I used to do. What do I work on next? Like, not, I'm good.
Yeah, like, I checked the box, I'm good. No, I'm in constant transformation. I'm constantly getting better and better and better.
And it's not like I went to church Sunday, so I did my Christian chores.
Yeah.
But now, we grew up with the church, and I think that it's by God's grace, because maybe we were just brought through all this so that we could talk about it one day, and hopefully somebody hears this and is like, oh, I feel the same way. Like, it's really frustrating. But I think that it's just because we've been set up to fail. In modern culture, anything that has to do with God or spirituality, like every picture of it that comes to mind is a jerk.
Yeah. And God is love. Like at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, Jesus is love personified. And if people meet me or you and talk to us and don't feel like loved when they leave, what did we do?
What
are we doing?
We didn't do it.
Not it. Because when I'm thinking about, let me find a church, let me plug in, let me do this, let me read my Bible, like, what? Okay, that's fine, but what am I loving?
It's all about your relationship at that point, right?
Yeah.
I remember asking somebody, I'm like, what would you say the whole goal of your church's like mindset is? And they're like, to get as close to God as possible. I was like, okay.
For me to get as close to God as possible. What does Jesus want you to do here?
That's what it comes down to.
He is not here physically in the physical sense. The Holy Spirit is physically here, but he's not here. What would he be doing? He would be loving everybody. What does that mean?
You put in the notes WWJD. He's not here, but we are.
But we are. We are here, and that's what we're supposed to do is love. That's as simple as it is.
How do we get so far away from that?
I don't know.
When you find out things, okay, we can talk about it because it's actually public news. We're not going to talk about all the specifics of it, but like the United Church is dividing, or the United Methodist Church is dividing.
I didn't know if you were going to bring this up.
I found it on the website. I Googled it. It's in their notes.
Public
and
knowledge.
they talk about the payments and everything. It's crazy.
I didn't read about this yet.
It is crazy.
This is secondhand for me.
I'll post it there, but it's just an example of like how like we've gotten so far off the focus that you're going to divide a whole church based on tertiary issues. Tertiary means not the main focus.
Well, you didn't even explain what you're talking about.
It's not,
or you're not going
the
to.
matter of the
Okay.
the moment. It just doesn't matter. It's just that stupid secondary stuff is splitting churches up left and right.
Yep.
And the whole idea of like what a church is supposed to be for, it's supposed to be a hospital for sick people, not a showcase for pretty people. It's not a museum. It's not an art gallery. It's a trauma
rock show.
unit. It's what is the tents called in the army wars, like the medic tent or whatever.
I would know.
You were in the service.
Army. I was in the service.
You were in.
Wasn't.
You served for your country.
Nope.
All right. So
Yeah.
my point is that where did we get so wrong? Why is church so about us and our performance? So there's this whole idea that's plaguing the church and the people who believe in God and anything of God that like once you get there, you've kind of arrived and you just got to make sure that you don't like make the wrong choice or slip into hell somehow.
Don't
and, like,
slip. Yeah.
Like don't do
slip.
one wrong thing. But like if you really believe that you could do something so terrible, you have now negated the entire process of Jesus dying and resurrecting and beating sin because of the one thing that you did? What?
Or didn't do. Like me not going to church.
Or that too. But it's super arrogant. It's arrogant to think that I'm the worst sinner. When people say, oh, I can't walk into a church and building burned down. Like the church is
so
here
annoying.
for you to stop feeling like that. It's the whole reason.
It's supposed to, I mean.
It's supposed to help you feel
it should
closer
be
to God, not
a
I'm the worst.
sanctuary where you can walk in and feel the love of God and worship Him with other like-minded people.
The
right?
word sanctuary, what does it actually mean? Hey, Siri.
Safe haven?
Let's look it up. But think about that too, like
And I feel that's how I feel, or I felt when I was growing up. I feel in the best church scenarios. I walked in and it felt like a sweet presence of Jesus, like love, and I wanted to worship Him and be like, I feel like I can see you clearer here because so many people are in love with you and they know you, and we're all together. You know, and so it just made sense, and I'm like, wow, I want to be here because we're worshiping the same God and we understand Him, and you know,
it's like-minded, it's community, and that's really what we look for a lot is community. Like when people like in the drone world are like, I love the community here. It's like you love friends.
I get that.
It's not just this community. It's the whole. It's you love friends and you love people that are accepting you already. And I actually put up. I hate to talk about it so much, but it's literally like a big part of my life right now. But I put up a post on there that said, guys, remember, FPV, first person view, this whole thing is the only thing we have in common, and this brings people from everywhere. This is the only thing we have in common. So remember that everybody sees the world a lot differently than you do. You only have one thing in common. And so you love the community aspect, but
the way they see the world is like first person view.
Through,
like, get it.
through a
That's
tiny
really funny.
camera streamed to your face. I'm so glad I remembered to hang on to this. But now that I said it, what is the heart behind? I almost lost it again as I was talking about how I remembered it.
The heart of worship.
My gosh.
What is the heart? I didn't sing until 30 minutes into the show.
I'm kind of disappointed.
Sorry.
You have a great voice.
I know, thanks.
What is the heart behind that phrase? I can't walk into a church because it'll burn down.
Well, judgment. Of
Of
course.
themselves?
Of their...
Are they expecting...
Somebody is judging them.
Are they expecting to be judged, so they're just trying to beat us to it first?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm the worst already.
Yep,
I know.
I'm the
Big
worst.
deal.
I know. And it's funny because, like, why do they think they're the worst? Like, what?
Who told you
what
you were
makes
the
you
worst?
so bad? Yeah, who told you you were the worst?
Some jerk Christian somewhere
Jesus
who didn't get
he'd
it.
be like, "You're the best. I love you. Really, come here."
And
you know.
You know what's a really cool thing I think about Jesus and how he was, how he carried himself, was that like he went out of his way to do things like say, "No, I care about you, the woman, the most looked down upon in this version of society. Like women were not important in Bible times, and it's just the way it was. I'm sorry for all the people who care about women being equally represented today. They're not in the Bible because it's historical, and women were not equally represented back then. I'm sorry, like it just wasn't a woke era. So, but the point is that Jesus was woke. If you want to look at it that way, like he went out and said, "No, this person is important to me. This person you're about to kill because according to the law she deserves to die. I'm going to turn around and say, hey, you all deserve to die. Why don't the one who doesn't deserve to die go ahead and
And how would
kill
that
her.
look like in our
It's
world today?
And a cool thing about the Bible too is how, of course, the whole thing points to Jesus. But like the Old Testament, when you look at the Israelites, it often turns into a mirror where you're like, I can't believe they're so stupid. I did the same thing last week. It just looked a little different. But so anyway, safe space spirituality is frustrating because it puts you in this like, it's subconscious, but culturally it suggests that. Like if you go to church, you do the right things, you put on your Christian appearance, like,
Yeah. And like the whole,
then you're good.
I get super annoyed with like plugging in. Like you have to connect. You have to join this group and you have to connect and plug in. And to me, like there's nothing wrong with that and like meeting people and everything. But it feels like another one of those things like, okay, I'm in the Connect group. I'm tithing. I'm doing this. Like you're doing all these things. So you're safe. You're good. And you don't have to think about anymore how to love
Safe
people.
space.
Like for me, being a real Christian in this world, not going to church for a while, it's like, what do I even do? Like this is totally up to me. Not up to me.
But here's
like,
a good point.
It feels so great. It's scary to
Not
be like
being around all that makes you more prone to that type of stuff. But you have a core, solid development of your faith from growing up in it and knowing
I love
this
Jesus
kind of stuff.
and he's real.
But
I
what
believe that
happens-
he's real.
What happens to the person who is not that and then decides, I don't need to be in church, I don't need to be around people? Like they aren't getting fed or they aren't getting encouraged, rather, with
Right.
other people who have like minds.
Well, hopefully they bump into
the-
somebody like me.
Right. There you go. But I think it's interesting with you where how you did get disconnected, you still held on to your faith, whereas a lot of people kind of say that was just part of the group. And I think that separates the people who are genuinely encountering God's love and the
That's
people
the
who
difference.
are playing
Yeah.
church.
And I ask myself that too. I'm like, how come I'm still a Christian? Like
Right? Because
Yeah.
you were telling this earlier, like I
'Cause
have questioned what I believe.
I've questioned
a handful of
everything
times.
down to the ground and for like long
Recently.
periods of time. You know, not just like, oh, I had this question for a couple days. Like I questioned for months at a time and I'm like, whatever, screw this. Like, I don't know if I believe this anymore. And, but it's true. Like I don't know.
I think it's healthy. And I think it's healthy to say, why do I believe this? And then coming
Yep.
back and saying, because this. Like, okay, so let's say we've all been duped, right? Let's say that somebody
Yes.
came up with an elaborate scheme that was like, Jesus, God, this whole thing, he's going to die. It's going to be great. Greatest story ever told, this and that and the other
It's
thing.
going to be great.
What we were saying earlier, I was like, what makes me think that it definitely is real? Because we don't know what happened between the first 30 years of Jesus' life. I feel like if somebody made this up, they would have included that information.
Give me some more stories.
Because we were talking about this the other day too. When the art of convincing is three things: it's pathos, ethos, and logos. So you have to appeal to those three different areas of the brain in order to convince someone. And it was like, here it is. Ethos means character, and it's an appeal to moral principles. Logos means reason, and it's an appeal to logic. And pathos means experience or sadness, and it's an appeal to emotion. We don't see a lot of those three things in how Jesus is presented. Like, it's just like, this is what happened. And so that's why I look at things like conspiracy theories or whatever. Like, I always look at, are they hitting these three factors to try to convince someone? Like, that's how you can tell if somebody's trying to manipulate you or not. Are they hitting those three arenas? I mean, it's good for organic, actual instruction too, but this is often used as a means to convince someone of something that they are not believing. So this comes down to evangelism too, and this cancel culture evangelism is so different, right? Because you can't go up to someone and say, and this is my friend was saying too, is like some of the things, one of the reasons he was turned off to this whole thing is that like, it was all, Jesus is the only way, and if you don't believe that, you're going to go to hell, and you're going to burn in hell.
Yep.
And I'm like, cool, I also believe Jesus is the only way, but why do we have to talk about the worst case scenario as a means of convincing? Because if that person that you're talking to in front of you, like I'm at a place right now where I'm praying that God will show me how to just show love to the person in front of me. And if it has to do with me explaining how that person can be reconciled to the God who created and loved them perfectly and knows exactly what they're going through and knows exactly what they need, if I can help them get to that, I'm praying that God will show me how to do it in that moment, because every single person is a case-by-case scenario, different basis. All I want is for people to also experience the hope and joy I have through Jesus. That's great. I'm not trying to make you think like me, because that's not productive. You're never going to think like me.
Well,
and
we're like a case in point right here.
I don't even think right in the first place.
We think so differently. Like the thought process itself, like we get to the same conclusions most of the time. But
That's really funny too.
you know, like
My wife and I are like that too, where we're like, doing math problems, she'll go like this way and I'll go this way. And we'll
Totally.
end up at the same place. And
Yeah.
it's-
So if you're trying to convince somebody with what makes sense to you.
Right. If you're trying to convince someone they need Jesus because they're going to hell, if they don't believe hell exists,
Yep.
you are just wasting time and you're just looking like an idiot.
Yeah.
My other favorite thing that's happening right now is that, like, I don't want to invite people to church anymore. Like, I'm considered a pastor at my church, and I don't want to invite people to my church anymore.
Considered a pastor.
They call me the pastor of evangelism. I thought I was the tech director, but they're like, we prayed about your gifts.
You
and you're
got
the pastor of
duped.
evangelism. I was like, all right, I guess we'll figure out what that means because I love this place. But God's shown me what that means lately, and it's just being relational, and it's caring about people, and it's understanding people, and showing people that you care about them, not just chuck in a box or getting more people on your team. I could care less if you're on my team or not. I'm still going to treat you like a friend, and I'm
Yep.
still going to treat you like you're on my team, even if you don't, whatever. I'm not going to be like, oh, whatever. Now, here's the thing. Inviting people to church, what happens? You have a conversation, and like this right now, we're talking to the church kids, all right? I'm sorry if you guys have no experience with this and you are just like, I don't know what that feels like. You won't. Because it's an awkward thing that was pushed on us from the very beginning, is that we're somehow out to win souls.
Gotta win souls.
First of all, Jesus wins souls.
Jesus wins
not
the souls.
Homeschool kids.
Nope.
All right. So
Not even Christian
not
school
church kids, not public school kids who go to church and are on fire for Jesus. Jesus wins souls.
Yep.
Jesus loved you so much that he got himself tortured and killed to pay for you to have a relationship with God through what he did. Not what
Reconciliation.
you're
I like
going to
that.
do. It's reconciliation. Reconciliation, the dictionary definition is the restoration of friendly terms. And God
It's
wants
nothing
to...
that you can do. It's believing that he is real. He is who he said he was.
There you go.
And he did what
He's trustworthy.
he's absolutely trustworthy.
When
Yep.
it says God is good, you can trust that that's true.
Yep.
I got so...
Sorry.
It's
We're not
awesome.
winning souls.
No. Yes, okay.
Oh.
The Bible said that when Jesus is lifted up, he will begin drawing all men to himself.
Yeah.
And when Jesus was lifted up on the cross, that was the beginning of him drawing all men unto himself.
So if you want to win souls, lift up Jesus.
That's exactly
That's what you
it.
gotta do.
So when I am out meeting people, I talk about my church highly. I lift it up in a sense. And I don't invite them to church because think about
What's
this.
going to happen? You were about to say this. What's going to
What
happen
happens
when this
next?
rando person, comes to your church?
Well, not even that. In the conversation you're currently having.
Oh, yeah. We could
What
rewind
happens
it.
next in your conversation?
Yeah.
Hey, good to meet you, blah, blah, blah. Talk about you. We'll get to know you a little bit. Oh, I'm part of this awesome church. We got a lot of kids. It's so great. You have kids. You'd love to be there. You should come out sometime. Yeah, I'm not really going to do that. Oh. Now, you had a genuine desire to get to know this person, but what you think is the whole reason for you talking to this person has now become a failure. And you now think, and guys, remember, I'm talking to just people who were raised in the church who thinks that this is what you're supposed to do at every single moment in time. I talked to a friend who said he worked at Whole Foods and felt incredibly guilty.
I was just going to say,
every
you feel
time
guilty and shameful every time you don't invite someone to church.
He was a cashier.
Oh, I
And
felt that
so
all the
he
time.
said, I thought that I had to tell every single person who came across my thing about Jesus or I was failing.
And they're going to go to hell now because of you. You didn't share.
Gosh.
Which isn't to say that you shouldn't open your mouth and talk about Jesus to people when the time is right. But
Well, what happens in that conversation after you
Yes,
invite that
what
person to
happens?
church? It gets weird.
Oh,
you
it gets
think
so
you're a
weird.
failure. They're feeling bad because they don't want to go to church, but they also don't want to make you feel bad. And they realize it made you feel bad. Now you're like trying to recover and it's not going to go well. And then you just sort of, the conversation literally loses its breath
it
and
sounds
dies.
like you've had this experience.
I haven't. I'm just thinking about the hypothetical. No, because I don't invite people to church anymore.
Not anymore.
So I met somebody the other day, and I was like, "Hey, you should check out."
Aye.
I didn't even say you should check out because that already is cringy. Like anything about.
That's a good question. How did it come up then?
So I just talk
Organically.
highly about my church, and then I say, I love it. It's great. So happy we have a good church. That's not, it's kind of awful to say these days because you're like, it's not like those other churches.
Our church isn't like those churches.
But it's not. It's really not. And I don't mean any disrespect to any other churches. Like, you guys, God will deal with you his own way. Like, he loves
Well,
you too.
it's
He
true,
knows how
yeah.
to deal with his kids in separate ways too. That's something I'm also learning to do is like to trust God to be God. And the things that I get frustrated with, I'm saying.
Guess what? Your job is to love.
You know what? It was crazy. God was like, hey, I love that person too. by the
Yep.
way. And I'm like, ooh, you love him?
And how much more
That guy?
if they are professing Christians, like, man, how much does Jesus want them to be close to him?
And why do we just think that the goal is
Everybody.
like performance and every aspect of everything? I guess it's a human thing, but
Yeah, well, and it's more of a cultural thing lately too. Everything is a performance. You got to video everything and put it online.
you got to stream it.
You got to stream it
to Twitch.
It is a performance, and you got to look good, and you got to sound good, and it's
I never got the care about looking good part.
Well,
as you can see.
I wore my best sweatpants today.
So you don't invite people to church. You just talk well about it, and then you pray that God does the work on the outside. Because my mom always said, the work is done in prayer. And just if you really care about what you think you should be doing to make God happy, then you should care about his people, and you should love his people like he told you to.
Yep.
And when I mean his people, I mean all people. Not just Christians or not just the people that you think the same as you.
That's so important, especially these days, because it's so divided. Everything's divided.
Here's a real test, all right? Anybody listening, here's a thermometer for you. Will you still love someone the same if they never came to your church and never decided to be a Christian? If you're a Christian and you think that this is your...
same?
Will you love someone the same if they never get on board and you knew that they were never going to get on board? Would you still love them knowing that you're not going to get a little notch on your perceived belt because they decided to follow Jesus? Would you still love them the same?
I know a lot of people who would probably be like, well, we tried.
Lost cause.
We're not going to associate with them anymore because
they're... just like Jesus would have done, right? Just like Jesus would have done. Yeah, he would have not associated with them. Tax collectors, prostitutes.
Nope.
Also, I can really feel the tax collector hate, man, because my tax collector made me cry. I was really behind, and I did a good job catching up, and then she's like, I don't want to see you in this situation next year. And I'm like, lady, I'm trying. I'm going to go cry in the car now because I was supposed to feel good about this day, and you just crapped on it. Real nice.
Oh, well.
Zacharias.
Zacchaeus?
No, Zacchaeus, thank you. I was close.
Wasn't Matthew a tax collector, too?
I don't know who was.
Somebody, well, whatever.
Oh man! So this has been awesome. How do you? You had a bunch of verses here. I want to look at this. Could you put all this right? We should definitely turn to the actual word instead of just the spoken word, the written.
Yeah, I had like a really good time reading these verses.
We know what real love is because Jesus gave us life. Why don't you read that one? 1 John 3:16. 1 John 3:16. The Ersatz, most popular verse.
Where's the 2:6?
Fourth yellow line.
What are you on the? Oh, this is long. Okay, 1 John 3:16. Yeah. 1 John. I get it.
Get it? That John 3:16. John
3:16. Everyone knows.
Yeah, right.
30 curveball. We know what real love is because Jesus gave up his life for us. So we also ought to give up our lives for our brothers and sisters. If someone has enough money to live well and sees a brother or sister in need but shows no compassion, how can God's love be in that person? Dear children, let's not merely say that we love each other. Let's show the truth by our actions.
Come on.
When's the last time I showed that I love somebody by my actions?
Whoa.
And not just myself. Like,
if I had a soundboard, I would push some sort of awkward sound right now. It's a message.
Seriously. And this is why I'm like, man, I'm a Christian, but am I a Christian? Like, what? Oh, the other one I really wanted to read was, let me find it here. Talk amongst yourselves. Which one? It goes right with this.
A peanut is nor a pea, nor a nut. Discuss it among yourselves.
Oh, man.
It's okay.
Live stream. I don't know.
No, this is actually the most real moments of live streams where it's not like, it's like, oh, they're real people too. Good.
They are real people.
Lose stream of content. Well, you put a lot of notes in here too, so that was good though.
They were so good. Unfading beauty. These are all really good. I could just read all of these.
I think what it comes down to is that if you're selling something, like if the feeling is sales.
Yeah.
And I was never good at any sales jobs because I just can't convince someone.
Oh, me neither. I'm terrible.
Take something that they don't need or don't want. I cannot change your mind about something. I'm on board with you. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you're right. You
Yeah,
don't need this.
you're right. That's how I was, like, at the Apple store. I'm like, nah, you probably don't need it. I don't know.
You don't need
you
Pro Care.
No.
You definitely don't need Pro Care.
Pro Care!
You could just Google it.
Wow.
Find some tutorials online.
I lost my train of thought, man.
It's okay. So we were talking about what Jesus would have actually done as opposed to what people think that Jesus should have told us to do. So I think a big part of it comes down to this.
Yes.
The church culture became something that people realized they could control people with. And by projecting a set of rules that you wanted people to follow, now you can make people do what you want. And everybody wants to control things.
People like controlling things, and people like being controlled to a certain degree because it makes them feel safe. Like, I know these are my rules and this is my lane, and like maybe you don't understand it because you're the controlling type, but people do. Like, they like.
Oh, I just had a really big realization of that. What if they're saying, I want to be controlled by other stuff because now I don't have to worry about it.
I don't have to worry. I don't have to think.
And you can rest in that space of
someone
thinking
with
it's
authority
taken care of.
over me is telling me that you're good because you did this.
Yeah.
So I'm good. Because, like, honestly, thinking about God and eternity and all that stuff is crazy. It's overwhelming. Like, it's a lot, you know? So I get it. Like, if someone's telling you this is all you really have to do and you're good.
Catholicism, too, where you don't have to read the Bible. The priest just reads it to you.
Yeah, you really shouldn't read it because you can't
book.
understand it, really. Like, he needs to.
Is also a Jehovah's Witness control tactic, where they say, how can you understand it? But then they use scripture, like the thing about the eunuch.
That's wild.
The Ethiopian, where they say, look, this is in the Bible, where this guy says he couldn't understand scripture. But that wasn't the point of that story.
I know, that's wild.
It's just, oh, man. I think that when it comes down to how do you know God is real? Like, how have you seen God be real in your life? What I can say is that if I look at the logic side of things, nothing about where I am, how I work, what I do should line up to the blessings that I have. And, like, it's not that it's about blessings.
It doesn't make sense. Your life doesn't make sense.
When I look at my life, I say, oh, my gosh, something is out there looking out for me because I should have died several times. You
should have, actually,
I made several dumb decisions. I've flipped cars over. I've put chemicals in my body for 15 years straight. Like, just the dumbest things you could possibly, think of. And for some reason, I'm still here and somewhat thriving. So, somewhat thriving. But, I mean, I'm allowed to be home a lot with my kid. And, like, the way that my work schedule lines up, like, God brings the work to me when I need it. And, like, nothing has really fallen apart so far. And everything about my life doesn't make any sense. So that's kind of where I look at and see the most tangible hand of God in my life. But then there's also things where I see, like, legitimate healing. Where, like, my wife doesn't have lockjaw anymore, which is supposed to be a condition that stays with you for life. I don't smoke cigarettes anymore, which you're supposed to be addicted to for life. Like, things like that. Like, there's just so much I can't deny. And that's kind of what we were talking about in that other episode. We're going to call it episode concrete because it was concrete evidence that spiritual affliction is... I'm probably going to just tag it on the end of this anyway because we have the time and it wasn't that long. But that was there's just so much stuff that God's given me, like, that is tangible and real, and you can choose to ignore stuff all you want, or you could choose to
look for it,
that God loves you and wants your life to be less crappy, because he said himself, the world sucks, but I've overcome the world. Like, that's, don't worry, I got you kind of thing. I would say that, somebody, it's okay. I can ramble for days.
I know.
Somebody said the other day about, like, well, I think I prayed enough when I had this physical condition and I prayed a long time for it and never got an answer. So that was enough. And I was like, dude, that's not how it works.
That was enough. Like, I gave up.
What happens is the world is very broken and it's only a little less broken with God's help.
And
but wouldn't you want things to suck a little less if they could? That
makes it, like, it boils the whole thing down to a transactional experience.
Yes.
Like,
Same with the church thing.
I prayed, it didn't happen. God isn't
did this.
real.
I should have got that.
God is like, no. This is a relationship. This doesn't end. This is a relationship. It's going on and on. Like, and like you're saying, like, we're transforming every day. Isn't that what we're supposed to do anyway?
It's a linear thing too. It's not just a snapshot. It's not a painting. It's a movie.
Yes.
It's not just one picture of, like, how it's supposed to be. It's an ever-evolving, developing.
Like, God didn't just, like, create the world and then sent Jesus, and now he's, like, sitting there. Like, he's it's we're all still alive.
Yeah.
Like it's all still happening.
It's still being,
And it's not like,
let
let me pray to him and ask for this one thing. It's like, no. You know what I mean?
I do.
I know you don't.
I do. I just wanted to talk about this for a second.
I want to find the verse.
This is for, what was it about?
No, I
Was
haven't.
it in the notes or?
Yeah, that's okay though. I'm looking for a different one now. The Emmaus Road people.
We grew up in the church. And how many of your friends that grew up in the church want nothing to do with God anymore?
You know what's interesting about that? I have like half of them are like super liberal, want nothing to do with God anymore kind of people. And then I wouldn't maybe.
We
it's
should
not
point
half
out
and
that you can be super liberal and also still have a relationship with God.
Totally.
Like,
yes.
It's not
yes,
a cut
I didn't
and dry
mean that
thing.
was one
but
or the other.
The majority of people who spend their time proclaiming how liberal they are probably not walking with Jesus.
And they think that they cannot also do both.
That's probably a good point of it too. Now,
but anyway,
somebody just got mad, but I'm just saying that like if you're really, I didn't mean it that way. What I meant was that if you're really vocal about your political opinions, you're not doing what Jesus told you to, because he said, don't be divisive.
He said, at all times, do everything you can
to live at peace
with everyone. He didn't say that, but
political
I think that's
no, that's exactly what he said. Do it, make it your best to have.
Did Jesus say that?
To live at peace with everyone, as long as it depends on you. Let your words be seasoned with salt. That you have good. You have.
And
that
that's
you have
like
the right words.
my life thing. Like I've always thought about that. I'm like, am I working hard to be at peace with everyone? It's
I just
hard.
want to make sure that point is very clear, that you can be a liberal and you can have a relationship with Jesus, but if you're being very vocal about the things that you're very liberal about, you're being divisive and you're not.
You could be vocal,
anything.
but if you're being divisive and hateful, then that's different. But
I'm politically agnostic. I don't consider myself liberal or conservative. I care about issues on a case-by-case basis. I don't pick a
and
side.
here's the other thing that the Bible says. Jesus, I don't know if it's, I don't want to quote Jesus if it wasn't Jesus, but to give respect to whom respect is due, and to respect your authority.
Yep.
And the political leaders of the day, whatever.
Even the police.
Follow the rules. Just, it's fine. Anyway, I was going to say, and it's not half and half, but a lot of my friends have gone like, not going to church anymore. I don't believe in God. Whatever. I don't know.
Did
that
they
was
grow
just part
up
of me.
In the church? Yeah, that's what you're saying.
Yeah,
the kids who grew up in the church are doing that.
People who grew up in the church, so they're just like, whatever. And then I have a lot of friends who are deep into like Catholicism, or they're like priests, or they're teachers, like philosophy teachers or religious teachers. Lots of our friends from Greenville, like they're like professors now, which is like a whole nother like academia,
Or YouTube influencers. Rod Kim was telling me the other day.
He's probably the only one
like,
I know.
I got to go hang out with a bunch of supporters on Patreon. I was like, what do you do? He's like, I just hang out with them in a chat room. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, and they support me.
It's
I was
crazy.
Like,
yeah.
That's so cool, dude.
Yeah.
I love that.
But yeah, so I feel like I have a lot of friends who went into like the super religious, like.
Well, Greenville's religion department was heavy-handed, and you either came out an agnostic or like a priest. Or something
a priest.
Real random.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's like been my experience. It's like, where are like the normal people in the middle? It's like me and you. I don't know.
We're here.
There's
we're
more
out there.
than just me and you, but
I think what it comes down to is if you grew up in the church as a kid, your faith never saved your soul. It never rescued you from darkness. It never changed your life. It was just always there. So even if there was something wild that was planned for your life and God miraculously spared you from it because you had a relationship with him, you wouldn't know. And there was nothing dramatic, nothing life-changing about it. So it's very easy to take it for granted and just walk away. But I will tell you from personal experience that you are going to cause your own problems, a lot of your own problems. Because even, I don't care what anybody believes, what's one of those philosophical guys out there, one of the big names, I can't remember his name, but he was like, the most productive way to live, the most beneficial way to live is according to the Christian set of morals. I don't call myself a Christian. This is what this guy said. He's like, I am not a Christian, but I have found that the most peaceful way to exist in life is to live your life according to the Christian set of morals, which I thought was crazy. But like,
it's not crazy.
That's not either to convince anybody or anything either. But I'm just saying, like, if you're somebody who has just realized that your faith never changed your life, like, just try talking to God and seeing what developing a relationship with the living God who loves you and cares about feels like, because I guarantee you that's not what your relationship is like right now. If you grew up in the church and you think that you don't need to care about your faith anymore, you have not tried to have a day-to-day relationship with the living God of the universe who created you and loves you. and cares about you and wants you to have a better day when you're having a bad one. That's like what my whole purpose of my like.
And wants
I feel
you to
like
have
why
a
I'm
better
here.
day when you're having a good one.
And that, an even better day when you're having a good one too. Hey, a God that wants you to thank him for the good days, not just say, "Yeah, I did this. I'm having a good day because I'm the best."
So
almost cussed.
What?
Because I'm the.
So
emphasis,
yeah,
it's fine.
I mean, thankfully, my parents are amazing, and
Yeah, they
like,
are. I'll second that. They are pretty
thanks.
amazing.
Like they're
They're going to hear this too, so I got to make sure that I say, "Hey guys."
Definitely gonna listen to this. They're just super legit Christians.
Yeah.
You know, they're like they
got that legacy energy
They
too,
ha-
like
they-
that lifelong
lifelong legacy
DJ
energy.
Lee's parents are like 90 right now, and they're still kicking. Like,
I feel like his parents need to meet my parents because they would be like BFFs
for sure. I
Yeah.
actually thought that at one
For
point too.
real.
Yeah. Shout
Like,
out DJ Lee, man. What's up?
Man. Anyway, so my parents' lives were transformed when they were around 30 years old. Like night and day difference. And they've dedicated their lives to sharing the gospel and like loving people, like for real, like inviting people into our home all the time.
Yeah.
For meals, for extended stays. I can't even tell you how many
There are those
people-
kind of Christians.
Those kind.
Those
like
Jesus movement Christians.
missionaries,
Yeah. I love that.
Rando
70s.
strangers who needed a meal, like people.
Yeah.
And
Rando strangers.
and maybe that's why I'm like, okay.
so good.
And I grew up like, that's how Christianity is then. Okay, cool.
This Christmas,
And nobody's doing that.
we brought an extra gift with us this Christmas for the rando that would be at her parents' house because there's always a random person. And we like,
yes.
just bring it.
Well, see, but that's anyway. So I think that's part of the reason why
Well, that's probably part of why your faith is so solid,
Yes.
too. Even at this point in life, when you are not going to church and you're just hanging out and like saying, "What do I even believe?" But your faith is still there.
But I know what I believe. Yeah, because it's for real.
Because it's real. You can trust
And what?
him.
Yeah, one of my favorite scriptures ever is Luke. Let me see, Luke 24. My glasses. Luke 24:32, where after Jesus appeared, he's resurrected and he appears to these people on Emmaus Road, and it's like, hey, talking to them, and they're going on their journey, and then they're like, didn't you hear about Jesus who just died? And he's like, oh, what? Tell me more. You know, like he doesn't know because he's Jesus.
Why was he like, dude, where's my car?
And like, what? Yeah.
Tell me more.
And then as soon as like, what is it? It's so funny. So he goes with them, and they're like, come on, stay with us because it's getting late. So he's like, all right, let's have some bread. Let's eat. He broke it and gave them the bread. Suddenly, that's interesting. As soon as he blessed the bread and gave it to them, their eyes were open. They recognized him, and he disappeared, which is just wild. Like, that's wild. But here it is.
He's like, oh, gotta go. They know who I am.
Go, yeah. Oh, they figured it out.
It doesn't sound like him, but
Then they said to each other, didn't our hearts burn within us as he talked with us on the road and explained the scripture to us? And to me, I think like, well, first of all, that's happened to me time and time again, where I'm just like sitting here, like I'll be in church and I'm like, I don't know. And then like, you know, you're just, I don't know if it's the witness of the spirit or whatever like term you want to use, but my heart burns and I'm like, this is real. Like you just know it's real. Like God put eternity in your heart and you're like connecting with it right now. And for like
that's
the whole
powerful right there. God put eternity in your heart.
Yeah.
And you're connecting with it. It's like you're getting a taste of like
you're getting
what
a taste.
you really are.
Yeah. And you're like, I get chills. Like I'm getting it right now, you know?
It's like what we're here for.
And that's how it's so simple, but like that's how I know that it's real. But I also think that that's how you can not evangelize. I don't want to use the word, but
It's hard, but
sharing Jesus with other people. You can just
sharing
be
the hope
talking
you
to them,
have.
the hope that you have.
that's the way it
their
should be,
hearts are
yeah.
going to burn.
Yeah.
You
They're
know,
like, oh, I do want that.
and because Jesus is going to be like igniting the eternity in them, and they're going to burn. You might not see it, you might not feel it, but it's in
What
their
a better
heart.
way to talk about burning when evangelizing.
A better way to talk about burning.
The term
You know?
evangelizing is actually not as I hear what you're saying when you're like, I don't
Yeah.
even want to say that because of the negative connotation it's gotten from all the people who are beating you with the Bible and telling you how wrong you are.
But that's like,
But the original term, do you know what it was from?
please tell me.
Euangelio?
Elon.
Euangelio, whatever. It's a Greek word that was used before Jesus, and it was Caesar's army would go out and fight, and then they would send the evangelists ahead of the army coming back home saying, Caesar has won another victory. And they were bringing the good news that Caesar won.
There's the good news. There we come back around.
The good news that Caesar won it's okay. The enemy has been defeated.
Like, let me be the first one to tell you, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. That's awesome.
These are the evangelists who would go ahead of the army coming back to say.
And how different is that from how we think of like an evangelist as somebody who's trying to change your mind?
The
like,
evangelist
you're
is
gonna go to hell.
someone who's here to say, good news, death has been defeated. Jesus won. And you can be free from your burdens because Jesus beat sin and death by dying on the cross. That's the good news. We don't have to suffer under the curse of brokenness and sin and addiction and depression and fear
Which
and
you know
shame
a lot about.
and guilt and all the crap
me too.
that exists in the world because Jesus died, beat death, put him in his place, and said, now you're free.
That's the good news.
That's the good news.
It's good news. It's like really, really, really
you can believe
good
that it's
news.
good. You can trust that it's okay.
Yep.
Life sucks. It sucks a little less with Jesus' help because he beat sin and death. And that's it. It's not you suck. It's that sin and death sucks.
Yeah,
that's
you
the
don't.
whole point.
Jesus is awesome. I had one
and
other
he
thing.
doesn't want to make you feel bad. Like it feels like everybody just wants to make people feel bad with everything they do these days. And like, that's not what Jesus did. What would Jesus do? He wouldn't make you feel bad.
Is he trying to judge you? No. Like 1 John 2:1 says, my dear children, I'm writing this to you so you will not sin. But if anyone does, we have an advocate who pleads our case before the Father. He is Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is
just
advocating.
In case you do.
Advocating for you.
Himself. Like
that's what he's doing. He's not saying you're a sinner. He's going to the Father for you.
You got a real bad court case, but you got the best lawyer of all time.
Yes.
He's advocating for you. John 3:17. Right? Everybody knows John 3:16. For God so loved the world, he gave his only son, that whosoever believes in him would not perish, but have eternal life. John 3:17, the very next verse.
Very next one.
For God did not send his son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. Whoever believes in him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe is condemned already because he didn't believe in the first place.
Yep.
So, but it's not condemning. It's saying like Jesus came not to condemn. Jesus came to reconcile, restore friendly terms. Happiness, peace, joy, all these things flow out of a working, functioning relationship with God through Jesus because of what Jesus did. When you start to think that anything you do can change your relationship with God, you are not looking at it correctly because it's not about anything you ever did in the first place. Adelaide says to me when she does something wrong or whatever, she's like, are you sure you still love me? And I'm like, where do you come up with this stuff? I said, of course I love you because you're my daughter and nothing that you do can change the fact that you're my daughter. I love you because you're my daughter. That's it. What you do doesn't change how I love you.
That's interesting because like being a child like that, like, oh my gosh, sometimes when I tell Violet to stop doing something, like she'll look at me and there's this like fear in her eyes. Like she's afraid of what I'm going to do. And I like want to cry.
Oh, I know.
I know, you know. And like now I'm beginning to know. And I'm like, this is terrible. But like she has to be taught and has to learn that love is unconditional. Like real love is unconditional. And we have to learn that.
It's not
and so does
performance-based.
everyone else. Like God's love is unconditional. Like the only condition was Jesus.
Love is not a reward for an action. Love is just there because of who you are when it comes to God anyway.
Yep.
Like, and I had to explain that to Adelaide. Like, I'm like, you're loved so much because of who you are. Now think about how much even more perfectly God loves us because we're his kids. I'm like, I love you unconditionally and I try to, but I sometimes fail at that because I'm human and I'm broken. But And
yeah,
I
like
think
it says in the Bible, like how if
so. Here's a good example too of evangelizing, right? Because when you have a parent that you're talking to about a kid, like if they have a kid, they understand. But a person who doesn't have a kid doesn't understand that.
That's what I'm just saying.
So
yeah,
sometimes
like
when I'm trying to help people understand how special the relationship with God and us is, so look at how much you love your kid, and you're not the most perfect person in the world, right? And,
not even close.
And you still love your kid pretty well, right? You think you do a good job loving your kid? Of course you do. Look at how God loves you. You're his kid. God loves you like you love your kid, but even more so.
Way more. Perfectly.
And like that brings me to tears to even think about. So I don't know. I just want.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot actually too in my hiatus from church because I've had a child.
Think about
in that time, and I'm like, wow,
right.
God loves me like this, or like more than this. Like, whoa.
Think about how embarrassed you are for bad Christian music. All right? Sorry, guys, just had to throw it out there.
This just took a turn.
But that's how embarrassed I am for bad Christian evangelizing. Like, you're just doing it wrong. And I'm not trying to be arrogant about this. It's like zeal for your house consumes me. No, I'm not trying to say that like I'm righteously flipping tables or anything. Like it's not that. It's not zeal for your house consumes me. It's guys, can't we please do better because everybody hates us right now? That's what the heart of it is. Can we just stop pissing people off?
Yeah.
Because that's not getting anyone. And I would say that culturally, it's a trend to piss people off.
Oh, like that's true.
In the comment section.
Oh man, people troll just
when you're interacting with strangers. Here's an amazing thing that I want to debunk. Okay. I was playing songs for a songwriter night the other day, and right before I did, I got this stage fright. I haven't had stage fright in a long time, but it's this real crazy, heart-pounding
I know what it is.
Anxiety in your chest. If you've never played in front of people and had this feeling, but it's like a... You're like, everything gets fast and your heart is like really, it like hurts a little bit and you're just like, what is this? And it's like intense.
Isn't that
fear.
Weird if you had, it's fear.
The last time that I played open mic a couple weeks ago was the very first time
you
I
played
have
an open mic?
Yeah, it was a whole setup. It was pretty funny.
I didn't get invited.
It was because I found out about it at 4 p.m. and it was at 7 and it was at Enzo's Pizzeria in Bud Lake, which was really funny.
Oh, nice.
So I'm thinking, no big deal. Let's go play a couple songs. I show up and it's like the Northeastern Songwriters Association and everybody's slaying and I'm number 9 on the list playing my songs for the first time in a long
it was like
time.
A real
they were all very good. And I was like, oh no.
I'm going to be terrible.
So I had this fear, this crazy, like this tightness. And I like first time playing without drinking ever.
I was going to say that too. Yeah. If you're doing this not drinking.
Super aware. And I'm like, what is this? Lean into it. Figure it out. We had a situation the other day where Adelaide and I parked a truck and we got a note left on the truck. It's like, this is for customers only. We will tell you at your own expense. We wrote down your license plate number for our records. I'm like, okay, hey, Adelaide, we got to go in the store real quick. So I take her inside and I'm like, I have the note with me. And I'm like, I grab 2 Cokes and a soda, 2 sodas and a candy. And like, I go to the counter and I go to pay. And like, my plan was I'm just going to hand him the note back and I'm just going to be like, we don't need this because we're customers. And so, but as I was getting ready for this confrontation, the fight or flight in here, that's what it is. It's the fight or flight. So when the fear thing, again, the flight was rising up in me. And again, the same exact physical feeling as stage fright. And I was like, whoa, so it's not actually about performing at all.
Yeah.
It's about confrontation. And the confrontation that I knew I was about to approach was creating all this crazy adrenaline. And my brain, maybe the enemy, was saying, run away because you're about to teach your daughter a powerful lesson. You're about to make this guy realize he shouldn't be so mean. And you're about to also handle this with humility. And I didn't realize all this until later, but like I went up to the counter. I had this note that would have pissed anyone off. And I just paid for my things first. Like, here you go. How you doing? Oh, good job. All right. And I gave him the note back. I'm like, and we just won't be needing this because we're customers. And the guy's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My boss made me he saw the camera. He saw the truck. And my boss made me leave the note. He's so apologetic. And I'm like, it's okay, man. I understand. Like, you're doing your job. The truck's hard to park. It was just a misunderstanding. I'm sorry. I get it. And then we just moved on. And I was like, I could have gotten angry and thrown the note on the ground, but how would I have looked to my daughter at that moment? And she also didn't know what we were doing. She's like, why are we going inside? I was like, oh, you'll see. Just hang on. But so about to approach the cashier. And I again, to even talk about it feels like the opposite of humility. But like as I look back at it, I realized that
that's a good
I
story.
lowered myself and showed my daughter they were mad at us. We gave them our business. And so like it's just the opposite of, I guess, what was the desired intent by the enemy. If it was set up by the enemy, who knows? Maybe it's just a bad day. So, but my point was...
Interestingly... Oh, sorry, I didn't get that yet.
I think that was the whole point, was just that the fear is the same. It's stage fright and confrontation. And why is it the exact same physical feeling? Because I'm so self-aware right now, I'm like taking inventory of everything that happens. And I'm like, why? What?
That's
What's
very
causing
interesting,
it?
yeah.
So stage fright is not actually stage fright. It's your internal fight or flight mechanism triggered. And that's like simple... What's the word about biology? I don't know. I don't know the science of how your body works. I don't know. So it just makes you look at things differently. Like it's totally physical. When I quit drinking, my brain said, I'm not drinking anymore. But when I heard glass hit an ice the next day, my mouth would water. But my brain knew I wasn't going to drink. So it was like, the body is still reacting.
Right. You have to like
habits,
reprogram.
The Pavlov's dog bell thing.
Dog bell. So interestingly.
It's just Pavlov's dog bell.
There it is.
Yeah.
I wrote down this verse regarding in-your-face evangelism.
Yes.
1 Peter 3:15.
Oh, I have a good thought about that when we're done, though.
Instead, you must worship Christ as Lord of your life. If someone asks about your hope as a believer, always be ready to explain it, but do this in a gentle and respectful way. Keep your conscience clear. Then, this is the part that I like, if people speak against you, they will be ashamed when they see what a good life you live because you belong to Christ.
Ooh.
And I feel like that's exactly what you did in that situation. Like,
oh, wow.
You know?
Okay.
I thought about this.
Certainly wasn't my default what I wanted to do reaction. That was God working
but the
through
way
me in
that you
moment,
reacted
for sure.
was evangelism to me, because what would Jesus do?
Oh my gosh.
You responded with
The
grace
unexpected.
and humility. Yeah.
Okay.
Instead, and then what? The guy was apologetic. He was like
That's true.
embarrassed
That's true.
because of how you lived your life.
And who knows if his boss actually did
Who knows?
tell him, or he
that
just
doesn't matter.
But I think about
That's
what
beside
he
the
went
point.
through when he was writing that note and the feelings of anger and bitterness that he probably had that moment. Like, oh, this guy parking in our lot. And then, like, I don't know. I don't know. I see too much. So you were saying about the in your face, and then I wrote down the trust thing.
Something about humility. Oh, yeah. All of you should be of one mind, sympathize with each other, love each other as brothers and sisters, be tenderhearted, and keep a humble attitude. Like, that was one of the things I wrote down when I'm just like, what are we supposed to do as Christians? Like, yes, we're supposed to love. What does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah.
Be tenderhearted, keep a humble attitude, cheerfully share your home with those who need a meal or a place to stay. 1 Peter 4:8.
That.
You know, God has given each of you a gift from his great variety of spiritual gifts. Use them well to serve one another, not to make yourself bigger or shine your spotlight on yourself.
Which comes back to the church
Look at
thing.
at my gifts as a singer. I should obviously be I need to be a worship leader because
I quote what you said to this day about how there are two types of singers. There are two types of female singers.
What did I say?
There are two types of female singers. Those who like singing and those who like people looking at them.
Oh, man.
And that applies to church as well. Do you not remember saying that?
No. I still believe it, though. That's very true.
There are, though. But that's
true.
why it's hard with music, too, in general, because you take somebody who learned how to play electric guitar to show off, and then you tell them, sit in the background and play for Jesus.
Yep.
And this is not about your glorification. It's about God's. So,
and you take someone who's sitting in the background just playing and put them up front, and try to lead this congregation, and they're just like,
and the congregation is probably it's a whole series of setup to fails as church musicians, just in general, because a lot of the people too who become musicians are not. And this is a really broad generality. I'm going to go like out on a limb to say this, but like the majority of people I know who are musicians are not. I can't. It's too broad of a generality to make. But like, if you are good at music, you're probably not super social. All right. So like, there are certain musicians who are. But when I think about like the musicians
who
that
are like
play in church,
super successful because they have it all.
Well,
like
that's
social.
But like
talented.
I think a lot of the people who I know who play at church probably wouldn't want to be on the microphone talking to the church.
Oh yeah, no way.
So, but they are in front of the whole church playing their instrument. So
Right.
there's a good amount of self-consciousness involved too. All right. So I know I made a really wide generality. It's
I
probably
see
not
what
very
you're
true, but I'm saying that
I see
like
what you're saying, though. Yeah.
if your brain is wired to be good at music, you're probably if you are the whole package, cool. But for the most part, like a lot of people who are into music, artists and artists in general too, like I don't want to say there's something wrong with you, but like there's definitely, you're not the outgoing extrovert person who's going to get noticed based on their personality. You're going to get noticed on your musical abilities. And you probably don't even want to really be noticed, but you feel like you should express yourself through music in the first place. So the church band's a great place to do that.
Is it?
I brought it through a whole. I mean, you might think that, but in reality, I don't know. You're just setting yourself up for some frustrations. But how many times did you have to like? I don't have a good follow through of that. It's fine. It's been we've covered a lot of awesome ground so far.
I think we
can
have
wrap it up,
actually.
Yeah. So I am going to tag that other episode on the end of this, just because I feel like it's fitting. So
I'm curious what it says myself.
What you're going to hear next is. Mary and I, when I first started this podcast,
Which was
23 years ago.
It was 23 years ago.
In 2000.
In Greenville College, now university. Just kidding. That's
when
not
I
true.
started it, we had a theme in mind, but this whole thing kind of took a lot of different themes, so the next episode didn't really make sense, so we kind of shelved it for a minute. But we are going to put it at the end of this. So this is me and you talking about the next steps to demonic oppression, demonic involvement in everyday life, and then I talk about how I got free from the things that I was in my life when I had my little deliverance encounter. So you guys can enjoy that, and we're gonna say bye for now. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
We gotta do some shout outs.
Oh, shout out!
Who do you want to shout out?
Tyler Banks, of course.
Shout out Tyler Banks. Yes, Tyler Banks. We're really hoping that song you wrote does something cool.
Yep.
Shout out Jackie Wilson and DJ Lee. One magical night in Nashville before I left town the next morning, we sat down and the process was so cool because I'm just flipping through sounds on a keyboard. And then Jackie was like, "That sounds like an island song." I went back and I was like, "Oh, it's called Monkey Skulls," which is funny. So then I played the dun 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 dun, dun, and then as we're vibing, we're like, "Oh, this kind of works." And then Tyler hit some drums, and it was like that magic lightning in a bottle moment.
Yeah.
It was 20 minutes later, the song was done, and we're just like, "Yo, what just happened? We just wrote a cool song."
I need to be in a room of people that can write songs at some point.
Cool. We should just try it someday. We should get one other prolific person in the room, and
Maybe
me, you, and that, and then that would be cool.
We'll get Jake and somebody else.
Dan Smock and Jake would be a killer combination.
Yeah?
Yeah, because they're just both, they have those really creative guitar palette minds. What I love about those guys is that they take a guitar and they make it do stuff that you didn't really think the guitar was about to do.
That's why I married him. It's amazing.
All right. What was the last thought that we were going on? I just got lost. That is one of the parts
shout-outs.
of my... Yes, thank you.
Dave Wayman.
Thank you. Shout out Dave Wayman. Shout out to our listeners in
Germany.
Frankfurt, Germany.
Rob.
I said so many dumb things about your town. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Another thing I would if you're still listening, please, just...
like and subscribe.
Send us an email. I don't care if you like and subscribe. Send us an email.
That's like writing a letter.
It is like writing a letter. Write us the letter. Waxlessradio@gmail. It's not hard. And just say, "Hey, I heard that part where you said send me an email." I have been...
I'm sending an email.
With these... Well, I feel like it's the easiest way. Look me up on Instagram. Send me a DM. It's
you know what?
No.
I do. I like an email.
Emails are permanent. All right. Email addresses are forever. Instagram accounts are futile.
If only that were true, but...
Send me an email and say, "Hey, I'm from here, and maybe I hate the show." That's fine, too. I don't care what you have to say.
I disagree with everything you said.
John Blake is John Blake goes... "I don't care if you hated my song. That means you felt something." I was like, all right, cool.
I was going to say at the beginning of the podcast, that's kind of my wish as well. You don't have to agree, but think about something and feel something.
Just think about something.
Yeah.
Exactly. So send us an email. Tell us where you're listening from. I really appreciate you, listener, more than anything, because... I don't know. We put a lot of effort into this, and I just feel like I want someone to just be like, "I'm glad I listened to that."
Yeah.
I don't want them to think that I'm great. You could think I'm a total idiot, but I want you to think that you're glad you listened to it. So thank you for sharing your time with us. Thank you for listening. And here is what was episode 2. Is now going to be episode 9B. Episode Concrete. There it is.
There it is.